Welcome to Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. Coming up on the programme this week.
Yet again, people are feeling like they have no other option but to end their own lives. This is once again proof that we have to be doing more.
Does there need to be now a coronavirus style national strategy to prevent suicide, like we know how to cross the road with stop, look and listen? Does that need to be a government strategy, do you think, moving forward?
We have lost too many people to suicide. Once again, 2019, we've lost almost 6,000 people in England and Wales to suicide. We have to take responsibility and we have to demand that change, because change is possible.
And I'll be reminding you how you can make connections with mental health organisations within your community. It's Mental Health Monday.
Mental Health Monday with Mick Coyle.
Tackling the stigma.
Hey, welcome to the programme and thank you for joining us on the programme this week. Back with Mental Health Monday. Now, I was away the week before last. And then we're into the bank holiday. So apologies, there was no show last week. But we're back on it with this week's show, and really busy show and really passionate show today, as you're about to hear. And also we're heading into World Suicide Prevention Day as well. So we'll be talking about that over the course of the next few weeks. To be honest, I've got that many interviews sort of lined up. What I'll do, I might be dropping a few of these into the feed just to make sure we're staying on top of things. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. The stats came out from the Office for National Statistics this week about the number of registered suicides in England and Wales in the year 2019, the latest stats, if you like. Now, the latest figures, they're not good figures. They're 5,691 suicides. Now, in terms of where we're at, we're talking consistent rates with 2018, really. Those numbers were still too high in 2018, so there's not necessarily any good news around these figures at all. Around 3/4 of all suicides registered were among men. We know that that has been an ongoing trend and continues a trend, but also the highest male suicide rate in 20 years was recognised this year. That's not great at all. For women, the suicide rate is highest since 2004. Now, I'll remind you again, these figures are for 2019, so this doesn't bear in mind or take into account anything that's happened through 2020 so far. Now, the ONS have produced all these figures. I'll put a link up to the page on the Audio Boom page that hosts this particular podcast. Have a read through. If you're involved in mental health, it's really sort of interesting to see what it is. But of course, as we're about to have a conversation and you're about to hear, every single one of these individuals' numbers is a person, is a human being. And that's, of course, what we've got to remember. Now, it's become an almost annual thing that Jake Mills and I catch up at around this time and have a conversation around these stats. And as you'll hear with the conversation I'm about to play you, it feels as if we'll be having the same conversation next year. I have put a call in, by the way, to speak to Nadine Dorries. Now, Nadine Dorries is supposed to be the mental health minister, the Minister for Suicide Prevention. It would be great to get her on the programme. She's declined the opportunity, or a team have declined the opportunity for her to come on the programme. What I'll do is I'll see if we can speak instead to the shadow teams and hear from the likes of the Labour Party, maybe the SNP as well, to hear how politically we can respond. At the moment, Nadine Dorries put something up on social media claiming that figures for this year are looking better. I've read the same piece of information that I think she has read. It actually says do not take these at face value because there's been delays in the coroner's inquests, etc., because of coronavirus. So it's hard to tell the reading on it from a political point of view and where Nadine Dorries is at. We'll be good together on the programme. If she's listening, you're more than welcome to come on and explain maybe how we move forward beyond this point. Jake Mills is from Chasing the Stigma. Jake's a big friend of the show. He's also the guy behind the Hub of Hope, where you can find services close to you. And I started off by putting those figures to Jake. 5,691 in England and Wales. This is before we had the numbers in Scotland and Northern Ireland, of course. And behind every single one of those, a terribly sad story.
Yeah, I mean, any number is going to be too high. But once again, we're seeing statistics that are as high as ever. Really, it's really disappointing and disheartening and heartbreaking, if we're being completely honest, that despite everything that we're trying to do across the sector, yet again, people are feeling like they have no other option but to end their own lives. This is once again proof that we have to be doing more from top level down to actually make a significant difference to these people's lives. We've got to be stepping up now and taking responsibility. And you know what, Mick? I'm sick of having to say the same things over and over again and not be listened to. And here we are with almost 6,000 lives lost, needlessly lost, because people felt they had no other options. It's just not good enough.
There's a danger on days like today, Jake, that these become stats, almost like, numbers on an Excel spreadsheet. But actually, these were all individuals. These were all individual lives, and lives that were surrounded by other lives who have been terribly affected by that person's suicide. And those numbers, they're not coming down at a rate we'd want them to come down. And we're actually starting to see those numbers go up again.
Yeah, and that's a really, really valid point that you're making, and something that we've all got to remember. Every time you talk about any of these figures, every time you see a figure or a number on a poster or on infographic on social media, they are lives. And what was behind those lives and what was behind those decisions is absolute turmoil, is failure, is somebody being let down. It's families being left behind with questions. It's people having to deal with the reality of losing somebody when they shouldn't have had to. And this is the reality of it. And right now we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm not going to make any flippant comments based on the pandemic that we are in, because it's a serious thing right now. But right now we are all experts, and we're all taking procedures and procurements to make sure that we look after ourselves. We're experts on it. We're being told it. We're learning about it. Year upon year, more and more people are dying by suicide, and we are not talking about it anywhere near as much as we should do. We are not taking the steps that we need to be doing to look after ourselves. We're not being taught about it. Our children in school are not being taught about their mental health, and so are growing up having to make their own way, make their own decisions, having to keep everything inside. The routes to help and support are not common knowledge. The system is not fit for purpose. There's so much that has to be done, and every year we are saying the same thing and nothing is happening, and we can't just wait and rely on empty promises and things that are going to be coming in 2 years, 3 years time. It's empty gestures, it's empty promises, it's just words, and people are dying. And these are lives that have been lost, and we can't just wait and let this happen again next year and the year after and the year after. Now we're currently trying to, the figures have only come out this morning, so we're trying to go through them and to be looking at all the ins and outs of everything. We know that in previous years it's been generally three quarters people who die by suicide who aren't known to mental health services. We're not able to confirm that based on the figures right now, and these figures that have been released are based on England and Wales, and once we have the figures for Scotland and Northern Ireland, then we imagine it's going to increase again. But we are anticipating that the same amount of people, generally around the same amount of people who died by suicide in 2019 were not known to mental health services. And we've got to be doing more to let people see the help and support that's available, to try and get help at an earlier stage, to try and prevent people from ending their own lives. I cannot stress this enough, Mick. Suicide is preventable. It is preventable, and that the factors that lead to somebody deciding to take their own lives are treatable. We can make a difference. We can stop this. We can bring this number down, but we've all got to be doing more together, and there's got to be real investment.
It's interesting the point you make there about people being known to mental health services. That's based around that idea that if you throw money at the services that currently exist, that money would still miss large numbers of people who don't know about these services. So how do you make that more widespread? How do you do it without having just to rely on goodwill or charitable work? The government, they had stay at home, save lives, these sort of key messages. Does there need to be a national strategy with one website and one phone number, and one key message that everybody knows, in the same way that we know how to wash our hands for 20 seconds singing a song, that we know when to stay home, we know when to wear a face mask, we know who to contact if we feel suicidal or if our loved ones feel suicidal. Is that possible?
Yeah, it is possible, because we've seen over the last 6 months, and don't get me wrong, there's, without kind of going into the ins and outs of it, there's certain things that governments have got right, there's certain things that governments have got wrong, but I don't think anybody can question the fact that we as the general population understand that there's a pandemic happening, and we as the general UK population understand that there's certain things that we can do to prevent or look after ourselves. We do that because they have, whether the messages might have been a little bit muddled along the way, but they have gone out with a message, and they've put that in all the different places. We need that same approach, particularly around mental health and particularly around suicide. We, as you said, we need clear pathways to care. There's money out there that are being put into services, and people don't know. Lay people, the general population, don't necessarily know where to go to for help. Because we're not being taught about it, that's where stigma comes from. And as I said, we've shown that there is a way of doing that. Through our work and with the Hub of Hope, we're trying to make that easier, and we're going to government, we're going to NHS, we're working alongside them, alongside what Public Health England and whatever happens with that. But we're saying, here's a solution where we can all just be feeding into this one place. Now you help us make that known across the country. You help us make that common knowledge that if you are struggling, you can get this help and support. There is money going into services. There is support out there. NHS have recently just commissioned 24-hour crisis phone lines for anyone who's in mental health crisis across the UK, across England, sorry. Now every trust will have a 24-hour crisis phone line. Would the general people know that? I'd say no, but that's what, so the money going into the service is one thing. Letting people know about it is a completely different thing. But we've shown that we are capable as a society to listen and to understand and to act. We just need to be told better.
Do you think that, you know, you could look at this as a pandemic in its own regard, suicide, that every year certain numbers of people are lost to suicide, in the same way that you can look at the same numbers for flu and for cancer and things like that? Do you think there's almost an acceptance from the highest level that people are going to die by suicide, and there's nothing that can be really done about it because it's their problem and it's not something you can legislate for? Because from what you've said, that actually it is something you can legislate for. It can be prevented, and actually if you want to, you can prevent these deaths.
Yeah, I think, if I'm being totally honest with you, if I was to log on and look at the ONS statistics of suicides in 2019 this morning, and I was to log on to that and I was to see a number that was 1,000 or less than 1,000, I'd be more shocked at that figure than I would to see close to 6,000. And I think that says it all. I think most people who work across mental health are almost expecting the figure to go up every year, or expecting the figures to be at least around the same, despite us every single day trying to reduce it. We know that it's going to be around that figure. And as we said before, they are lives. They are, and honest to God, I could cry when I read that every single time, because they are people. And we are not doing enough to reduce that number. I think that there is a certain expectancy that, yeah, it's going to be around that figure, and this is preventable, and it doesn't have to be expensive to make it, to reduce those numbers and make people realise there's help and support they can get at an earlier stage.
If you look at the wider sets of figures for that, there's been declining rates of suicide from the 1980s through to about 2007. By 2010, things have changed, and then things have then started to increase. We've seen a significant increase very recently. We need to take action now, don't we? Because, you know, a slight upward trend on a spike, as we've seen with coronavirus, can very quickly move northwards before you know it. Things have to happen now, don't they?
Absolutely, and we can't wait for figures to be coming out every year, because But one thing that I will just point out at the moment as well is that there's a lot of misinformation about suicides based around coronavirus and the time period that we've had. We don't know that yet, because the reason why we're talking about 2019 statistics now is because it takes a certain amount of time for something to be deemed and to be acknowledged and registered as a suicide. That takes months. So we can't know any figures based on what we are currently experiencing at the moment. But certainly, I think most people would expect the figures to be at least the same as they were in 2019, if not possibly more, due to the coronavirus and lockdown and everything else that we're going through. And that's why we can't wait now to see what the figures are next year. We can't wait to a year ahead to see what those figures are and see how we're getting on, because it's not getting better, it's getting consistently worse each year. And we have to be doing it now to prevent those figures in 2020. We do it now. We need to do the work now. We can't just sit around and wait. And as I keep saying, it's not rocket science. I'm running a national mental health charity. I've created a database that is potentially being used by hundreds of thousands of people. I'm just a normal lad from Liverpool who had no experience of working in the sector, who had no technological experience, who didn't study any of this. It's basic. If I can do that, anybody can. If I can do that without any resource, without any money, anybody can. So I'm not going to sit back and allow people to say it's too expensive, we can't do this, because you can. We just need people to want that change and to want that difference. And if we and the people who you have on Mental Health Monday and the people who we talk to every single day, if we can have our voices heard, we can make change. We can demand change. We have lost too many people to suicide. Once again, 2019, we've lost almost 6,000 people in England and Wales to suicide. We have to take responsibility and we have to demand that change, because change is possible.
In terms of that, for those people who are, for instance, living in Yorkshire and Humber, where figures have been increasing significantly, they'll be thinking, "All right, well, that doesn't sound like great news for our area, but what can I do?" You know, if people are horrified by these figures and are thinking, "Okay, I want to know more, I want to learn more," what can people do?
People can start today. People can start to make a change today. People can learn and read about what is mental health. What does that mean? Mental health is not a bad thing. It's not. Mental health doesn't mean suicide. Mental health is just part of us all. We can be looking after our mental health and keeping it good. You can learn about that. You can be looking at different charities or organisations like our own, Chasing the Stigma. With our training programme, you've got Papyrus, you've got Mental Health First Aid, you've got Samaritans, you've got people who have got loads of resources, and you can learn about that. You can know that there's help available. You can use the Hub of Hope. As I said, that's just a database that we've developed. It's a free app, or hubofhope.co.uk, to see the help and support that's available. Find that support that you can get at an earlier stage, whether that's for yourself or somebody else. If you are feeling unwell, if you're feeling not yourself, find that help and support. Reach out. Don't wait for it to get worse or hope it just gets better. Find the help and support for yourself or somebody else. Have a conversation. If you're worried about somebody, don't hope that somebody else will ask them. Don't think that you're not qualified to ask them if they're okay. You're qualified to ask them if they're okay if you know them. Even if you don't, ask them, get them to the experts. Don't try and be an expert yourself, but get them to the expert. But have a conversation. Don't just put it off. Don't just bottle it up. Don't just think it will get better. I'm speaking from experience as somebody who did do that and it didn't get better. Have that conversation today and find the help and support that's available and make it just a really normal, everyday thing that you do.
There's a Minister for Mental Health, Nadine Dorries. We've invited her on the programme a couple of times. She's declined the opportunity to come on the programme. Busy, obviously, with the public health role she has with looking at the coronavirus situation. What would you say, though, to central government looking at these figures for England and Wales that have come out today?
I would say, please look at the support that's around and the people who are making a difference. Because do you know what? All you have to do is support them. Don't just follow the same route that you've always followed. Don't just kind of shrug it off and just think, well, we'll just try and get the same results by doing the same things. Look at the people who are doing things across the country, small organisations, charities, people who have developed something because they have experienced that void, and they have experienced loss and death and trauma and despair, and they've done something about it because they know, they've experienced it, and these people are doing it with next to no money. Look at them, listen to them, find out what's working from their point of view, find out what's working from the ground. They're the people who hold that answer. And you know what? It won't take loads of money, it won't take loads of time. Just listen to people, speak to people, and be willing to make a difference based on what they are telling you. Because I can tell you from experience, there's life-saving work happening every corner you turn. Go and listen to them.
Does there need to be now a coronavirus style national strategy to prevent suicide? You know, the number to call, the website to go to, the slogan that we all know, and we know, like we know how to cross the road with stop, look and listen. Does that need to be a government strategy, do you think, moving forward?
Absolutely, and certainly from our point of view, we are ready to go with that. We can help government make that happen. We are ready and willing, and we're knocking on the door every single day to say, let us help you do this. Let this be common knowledge to everybody that if you are ever struggling, this is what you do. That is how we're going to change these numbers. That's how we're going to save lives, by making people aware, the help and support that they can accept, and that they can go and get themselves while they're waiting on waiting lists, while they're receiving other support, while they're having medication. Let them see that help and support, that they can go and get themselves, and let that be common knowledge, so that you don't have to go and ask somebody else, what should I do? You don't have to wait for the doctor's appointment to say, what should I do? You don't have to have a conversation with anybody. You don't even have to tell anybody that you're going through it, as long as you know the process to get better. And I'll keep saying it, it's not rocket science. It won't take a lot, but it takes somebody willing to do something different.
We've been having these conversations year on year. Why is it that I already think we may as well book in our conversation for this time next year, where we have the same conversation? I'm hopeful, and I'm a hugely aspirational person when it comes to what can be achieved. Why is it, in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking we better get prepared for this conversation to take place again this time next year?
Well, I think because we've probably had this same conversation this time each year for the last 4 or 5 years, and I think in all reality, and I think the real tragic thing of it is that we probably could have just today played a recording of our conversation 3 years ago, because you know what, nothing's changed, and the figures are there for you to back that up. And again, I'm not going to accept any small wins when it might come to, well, there's 300 less suicides this year. There's almost 6,000 people died by suicide. There are no wins here. That figure needs to be reduced to 0. But we've got to be realistic, and we've got to know that things may take time. But until we're listened to, and until those doors are opened to people who have that key and have that knowledge, then nothing is really going to change. And I hope to God that we can have some of those doors opened, and can have a new response and a new tactic to address this. But we're in September now, so you know there's 3 months left of the, I don't know how many months left of the year, 3 months left of the year, 4 months left of the year, and we're still banging on those doors. So I think that's probably why we do have this feeling that maybe nothing's going to change for the foreseeable anyway.
Jake, thank you so much for your time as ever. Let's hope we're having a slightly different conversation. If we can get that, that ball rolling, we've been trying for a long time, but those conversations need to take place. And obviously, with everything going on from a coronavirus point of view, maybe the government will be minded to think a little bit differently. Jake Mills from Chasing the Stigma and the Hub of Hope, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this week's podcast. Thanks for checking out Mental Health Monday. My name is Mick Coyle. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Mick Coyle. You can also find me, Mick Coyle, on Facebook as well. Don't forget, if you want to speak to somebody about your mental health, you can do so. The Samaritans, free to call on 116 123. You can find mental health services where you are. Just look for the Hub of Hope. Type in your postcode. It'll find those mental health services close to you. And for support in a crisis, you can text SHOUT to 85258. That's if you're experiencing a personal crisis, you're unable to cope and need support. Shout to 85258. That's a text line. Do get involved in those services. In an absolute emergency, always remember the number to call is 999. Thanks for downloading the podcast this week. We'll be back next week with more Mental Health Monday.